Hello, everyone, and welcome to the DebtCircle podcast, India's dedicated platform for debt market. I am Leelavati Shetty, your host for today's episode, Beyond Automation, the Human Edge. Artificial intelligence is no longer the technology story. It's becoming the market story, the business story, and increasingly the human story. But beyond the headlines, the real question is when machines become smarter, what becomes more valuable for businesses, market, and people? To explore that, we are joined by Mr. Ameya Abhyankar, the founder of FinQuest Institute. Thank you, Ameya, for joining us. Welcome to the DebtCircle podcast.
Hi, Leela. Thank you.
So to begin with, the shift which is happening over the last few years, AI has gone from a niche technology to a boardroom priority. Before we even start discussing about its impact, let's start with what has actually changed. So AI has become one of the defining themes for businesses and markets globally. What do you think has changed over the last few years that AI has become impossible to ignore?
So I think first and foremost, one is the easy access to tools and also the ease of using these tools. So even a non-tech person would find it very comfortable to use AI tools. Other thing is cost. So we see that even if you look at majority of AI tools, some of them offer some parts which are free, others which are paid, but still at a reasonable fee. Scalability is immense. So I think that is something which businesses are looking at very, very closely, because then they would want to use AI at a certain point as a part of their scaling operations. And I think gradually it is going to become more and more mainstream, and we'll see how the industry adapts to this change as well.
So are we in the early stages of this transformation, or are businesses already entered into the AI-driven operating model?
I would say majority of the businesses are still in the initial stages. So if you observe that in many firms as well, they are trying to explore AI on a pilot-wise basis to understand if it's going to work for them, not work for them, etc. So I think there's still time before it can get fully operational on an enterprise-wide level. Also, you'll observe that popular tools like Copilots, etc., which firms are using very frequently, very useful tools. But then again, if you see, they are being used for specific tasks rather than an entire enterprise-wide thing. So I think there is still some time before we can see it as an enterprise-wide rollout.
So as someone who is sitting at the intersection of analytics, finance, and education, where are you seeing the most meaningful adoption of AI today?
So I think multiple places. One is, so if I talk from maybe a risk perspective or maybe a business perspective, I would say one place is where you can extensively use it for automations. So when you say automation, it can be your regulatory or risk reporting, compliance reporting, also having any kind of timely messaging which needs to be done internally. That is something which we do as well. Also, off late, so even for our meetings as well, we have started using a lot of AI tools so it's like a meeting assistant. So earlier, Leela, if you see, when we had a meeting, we generally used to have someone who used to take notes, and then they used to send out everything to the organization, isn't it? But nowadays, it has become very easy. So once you join a certain meeting, your AI agent joins with you. They make a note of everything, and that makes it very easy to do any kind of follow-ups or any kind of to-do list which needs to be sent. And I think it becomes very streamlined and we don't miss any points. So I think there's just one application, but then there are many, many places where we have begun to use AI.
Yeah, I mean, knowingly or unknowingly, AI has become a part of everyone's life nowadays.
Indeed. Yeah. I think even if you look at phones, everything is AI powered these days. Yeah.
So whether it's a signal or a noise, markets have embraced AI with remarkable enthusiasm.
Yes.
New narratives are emerging, valuations are being assessed, and businesses are increasingly positioning themselves as AI driven. Now, the challenge, however, is separating genuine transformation from excitement. So markets are increasingly rewarding AI driven stories. Now, what's a genuine signal and what's a noise?
Correct. So So maybe I'd like to bifurcate them, and I could briefly talk. So when I say noise, probably I could call it as a hype as well. So it could go hand in hand. So generally, I mean, we may see that there are certain AI products whereby you have these flashy demos, or maybe these wonderful products which you see, or you see statements like, "This is going to be the game changer. This will change everything." But then, so that we could say as a hype. I'm not saying it's not entirely useless, but then the thing is, it's definitely useful to attract more eyeballs. Probably it could help in early stage financing as well for a certain company, and to bring in awareness. But I think firms will need to look beyond that as well, because then to have a firm foundation, just having a hype is not good enough. But then a signal is something which is much more genuine, I feel. It won't create noise, it will be quieter, but then it will be very ingrained into a certain firm's processes. And I think that's what a proper AI system will demand. And we will need it to be ingrained within the internal controls, internal systems, so that it can work on the enterprise-wide data and have definitive signals as well. So I think this is what we can bifurcate between a hype versus a genuine, or maybe like a. So the other point was, so it was one
so
was
basically
hype.
Whether it's a signal or a noise.
Yeah, so the signal one. Yeah, so I just missed the word. Yeah, the signal.
It's basically how well we can adapt to the technology, to the changes.
Yes, and one is a few indications whereby you understand that it's a signal is whereby we have better process efficiency. The process metrics are better, number of errors are lesser. Let's say even our customer targeting gets better as well. So I think all of these indicate signals which will be useful in the long term.
Yeah. So do you think investors are pricing AI accurately, or are we seeing pockets of excessive optimism?
So yes, I mean, when you look at valuations of AI firms, they are very, very exciting. You'll see that even the privately funded AIs, pre-IPO valuations, I mean, the multiples are immense. So that gives a sense that these are going to be like the next biggest opportunity out there. But I think there is still time before we can see if this can actually translate into a stable revenue stream for companies. So that is one. I think other thing is skeptics are also looking at parallels between the dot-com bubble and AI as well. I won't say they are exactly comparable, but I mean, we had seen similar excitement and enthusiasm at that point in time. We are seeing something similar here. But let's hope AI it doesn't end up on the dot-com side, but it's able to then generate meaningful profits for investors.
Hope the excitement and the expectation and whatever AI gives us stays.
Hopefully it stays, and hopefully everyone is happy with it.
So what separates meaningful AI adoption from simply using AI as a marketing narrative?
Correct. So you'll observe that a couple of points which come to our mind here is maybe one is your operational infrastructure, operational efficiency. When I say operational, basically the internal operations of a certain company. Now you'll observe that many companies out there, they are deploying AI tools and they're doing it in bits and pieces. So I think that can be a bit of a problem, because then sure, to show it to investors or management, okay, I mean, we are using AI tools. But then there should be a deeper thought behind it. So maybe you need to do your staff training. We'll also need to have a proper data infrastructure in place. Your internal systems will need to be aligned with AI. So once that is done, it supports their idea of operational excellence. Other things could be probably having a continual improvement, because I think that's what everyone wants to do, isn't it? Because there's no perfection. So if we have now just saying that AI is going to improve everything, sure, I mean, as a marketing statement, it's okay. But then to have proper systems which are going to learn, and something which will adapt to changes, and then which can accordingly fine-tune certain actions, I think that is something which is going to again bifurcate marketing from the actual real deal for the businesses.
Yeah, I think that thought that AI will do everything, that will only happen when we also adopt to the change and we also start working towards those changes. Together it will go hand in hand.
Absolutely, and I think having a robust internal infrastructure is very, very important. Just using ad hoc processes would not suffice.
So beyond technology companies, where do you see the most compelling opportunities emerging from AI and analytics?
So a couple of industries come to my mind. One can be definitely BFSI, because then if I look at, let's say, key tasks like your monthly or even quarterly regulatory reports, which happen from banks or other institutions, they can definitely use AI tools, because then the chances of human errors come down if you're using some kind of a tool to generate reports. It will be a timely fashion as well, so that way we just set a time and the report will go 2 days prior to the deadline. So I think that is one. Banks have started to use it for some basic, so as a part of their fraud analytics, I would say as well. Because then we have these real-time monitoring which happens when it comes to typical fraud analytics for, tackling white-collar crimes and so on. That's one, I think, other place whereby I've seen this being used. I've spoken to a couple of my doctor friends as well. So even in medicine or even the medical fraternity, they have started using it for their typical documentation. Because then if you see for certain medical practitioners, they have a very stringent requirement for regulatory reporting and documentation. So I think they have started using AI tools so that they don't miss out anything, and everything gets captured and reported on time.
Yeah, that's very true. AI helps to at least gather information, and all those tools have always supplemented our work.
Yes.
Yeah.
Indeed.
So with AI coming into picture, we see the decision maker changing. So new decision makers are coming up. So while most of the conversation is around automation, another shift is quietly taking place. So AI is increasingly influencing how decisions are made across businesses, financial institutions, and investment areas. So how are analytics and AI changing decision making within organizations today?
So I think, as you rightly said, automation is certainly one, because then there are many mundane tasks which are now being taken care by AI. So I think that is something which can actually help a person focus more on strategic decision making rather than mundane tasks. I think in addition to that, other thing. So one more point which comes to my mind is using these natural language processing tools, because then we can have many people who come from a non-tech background, and typically for them, maybe building an entire technology system would be difficult. But these days, if you see for platforms like, for example, Claude, and you can just put in a query and Claude will guide you on any kind of maybe dashboards or any kind of actions which need to be taken as well. So I think that is something which is benefiting decision makers, because then rather than you going out and building the whole thing yourself, I think that is something which actually helps make a quicker decision.
Yeah, I totally agree. If you know how to give the right prompt to these AI tools, how to operate these AI tools, it can do wonders.
Certainly,
Yeah.
completely agree.
So now, companies have access to more data, nowadays than ever before. So what separates organization which creates value from this data versus companies who are simply collecting data?
I think both of these types of companies are important, because then we require someone who can actually collect and maintain the data as well. Because then when you say data collection, there will be data cleaning, data curation, and also ensuring that the data can be accessed very easily by people. So I think that is important. So think of it like a data repository. And then you have the other set of companies who are actually using that data in order to make certain decisions or take certain actions. So maybe one of the examples could be applying certain machine learning tools whereby we try to do some kind of predictive analytics. So we consume the data which is provided by a data warehouse, and then maybe make a certain decision. It can be, let's say, consumer demand forecasting. So let's say we can have data from a certain market about probably credit card spending by customers. And then accordingly, based on the data, a bank might want to fine tune their marketing strategies to sell credit cards to new customers. So I think that can give them certain direction as to how they can direct their efforts as well towards the business growth.
Yeah, so once AI tools helps you and gives you an output, you need to know how to further utilize it and put it to its right place. That is how you can expand further.
Certainly.
So in areas like investing, risk management, and strategy, where do you think AI is adding the most value?
So if you talk of investments, many asset management companies have started using AI tools to a certain extent. So maybe one example which comes to our mind, it can be on stock selection for a certain portfolio manager. So there are tools, or maybe there is a technique called as unsupervised learning, which we use very frequently. So then typically what we do is we just send the data to the model. It can be any exchange which you can take, and the data will be available to them. And based on unsupervised learning, the machine will then try to segregate stocks based on certain criteria. We don't tell the machine what is to be done. The machine is intelligent enough to take that action. And accordingly, that can help portfolio managers even make a dynamic asset allocation as well in real time. So maybe that is from one example from investments. From risk point of view, I would say automation of risk reporting, because that's very, very important. Because when it comes to regulatory risk reporting, be it any capital numbers or stress testing numbers, it's very, very crucial. And ensuring that the numbers go correctly and on time is very, very important. And firms have started adopting systems for that purpose. From strategy and operations, you'll see that there is a growing shift that firms are trying to realign their internal machinery when it comes to their S&O practice, which you call a strategy and operations. So they have started to adopt certain AI tools in order to have a better realignment to their existing strategy, so that then in their overall S&O advisory or maybe S&O actions, tools can come very useful.
Yeah, I think slowly and eventually almost all companies will start adopting to this change and getting, AI intervention somewhere or the other in small pockets of their organization.
Yes.
Now, as these AI tools are becoming more powerful day by day, where do you think, human intervention will still be required?
So I think human expertise and human intelligence will always be important, be it any era we are in. So I think a few places or maybe a few examples which I can cite or maybe which I can think of is one is maybe automated trading, because everyone knows algo trading, and we may have many listeners who do algo trading themselves as well. So probably even they may agree with me that sure, a lot of analysis will be done by the machine, but finally when you have to make a yes or no decision whether to hit a trade or not hit a trade, I think that's where a dealer's expertise comes in, and that will be very, very important. Also, I will say when it comes to regulatory capital numbers, which is very, very important for any bank, because then any regulator will expect that calculation is very, very correct. I think typically that's what I've seen from my experience as well, that these kind of mission critical activities are still where you need human expertise and human experience. And also deciding which action is right, because I think code of ethics is also very, very important. Sure, the AI tool might give us a certain action, but then to see if it aligns with the internal code of conduct and ethics, I think that is where, again, a human interface will be required.
So when we talk about human, so the most important part, the human edge, perhaps the most important or the biggest debate around AI isn't all about technology. It's about people. Every major technological shift creates opportunity, but at the same time, it creates some uncertainty as well.
Yes.
With AI coming into picture, one common concern that AI has created everywhere is, will it replace jobs? What are your views on this?
Correct. So yes, the current job market is tight. I would say even before AI came in full on, there were these mundane and repetitive jobs had anyways gone away, because then that is something which could be automated even without AI. So concern is real. Yes, people might have a sense that AI is going to take away jobs, but then that may not be 100% true, because then there are. Because I think human experience and the subject matter expertise, which is there, I think that remains the key. And we should remember that AI is a tool, and we should be able to compound our expertise with the tool for the best benefit. So I think it will go hand in hand. So as long as people continue upskilling, so be it any subject matter where they're expert in, be it finance, be it marketing, be it engineering, as long as they know the subject, I think they can effectively use the AI tool, or rather not use the AI tool. So I think that way, I don't think it should be a big worry. As long as we keep learning new things and adopting AI, I think we should be good.
I think fear comes first, then survival, and then because of survival, you have to start accepting, that we have to start changing with the changing environment, changing technology.
Indeed, and so many things are changing. It's like fear of the unknown at present.
Yes.
Hopefully, that will go away.
Change is the only constant.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So historically, technological revolution has created opportunities. At the same time, it also has caused disruptions. So how do you see this time, with AI coming and with so much of noise about AI? What do you see this time? What is it going to happen?
I would say it will be a mix of both, Leela. So I would say, from when you talk from an opportunities point of view, I think AI has a lot of potential to. So if I take an example of automation, because then I think viewers will be very familiar with that. So if I can automate a few tasks, we can have an analyst or maybe a manager who can focus on certain maybe other mission critical tasks. They can also think of optimizing certain business lines or maybe even explore new business service or lines, because then a lot of things are being taken care by the machine, and then they can focus on increasing the business as such. So that way, I mean, there are potential that opportunities for the companies can increase, because then you have more people who are actually looking at what they can explore going forward for the firm. So one was opportunity from a disruption point of view. So maybe one of the experiences which I can share as well, it's automation of your data. So for example, let's say if you have a certain model which you run on a daily basis, maybe a few years back you could have an analyst who could actually go download the data, store it somewhere, and then the model will consume it. Now these days you can have a data pipeline which you can create, and that is something which can be very easily automated. So you say that, okay, at 5 p.m. every day after market closure, please go to a certain location, get the data for us, and then feed it to the model. So I think from a disruption point of view, maybe earlier we used to require a developer who could actually develop a program, who could actually go to the website and get things. But these days, maybe tools which we have currently, we can have an agent which can actually approach that particular location, get the data for us. So that way, I'll say from a cost perspective, it becomes very, very effective. So rather than having someone to actually go and develop something, we can use a tool and that can actually streamline things.
So as you are sitting at the center, you are at the intersection point of analytics, finance, education, business. So what do you think, which skills will always remain valuable irrespective or regardless of how advanced AI becomes?
So one is definitely the knowledge of market and the industry. I think that is always remains the key. So be it any industry which one picks, but then that will remain. And I think the core subject matter knowledge, so be it any subject, be it engineering, be it mathematics, be it finance, I think that continues to remain the key. That is just irreplaceable. You cannot
Yes,
not have it.
So in a world where AI can generate information instantly, how important does domain knowledge, will continue to be, or how important domain knowledge will become?
I think domain knowledge, which I would like to call maybe as a subject matter expertise, that will always be very, very relevant. Because then, if you see, AI will give us a certain analysis, but then how do you figure out what that analysis is and what kind of action you take or rather not take? I think that is something which one will get to know only if you know the subject. So I think, as I mentioned earlier, we can think of that as a tool, but then to use the tool, we should know what we are doing. So I think that industry and subject matter knowledge should always be there in order to use the tool in the most effective way.
Right. So, any advice which you would like to give our young professionals who are trying to build out a career in this AI-driven world today?
Correct. So for all the youngsters out there, and I'll say don't be scared of AI. It is an opportunity which everyone should embrace, because I think that is something which is there for the future. I'll say try to combine that with your subject matter knowledge, because then in the end, it's always the subject matter expertise which pays. You just cannot ignore it. So focus on fundamentals, and I think trying to align it with AI will be a big benefit. I'll say knowledge of technology. When I say technology, maybe pick any programming tool, or maybe having the basic idea of a model or a system architecture. I think that will be an advantage, so that you understand these AI models in a slightly better manner. And I'll say networking, of course. So be it any age, I think networking is the key. You will need to continue to do that. And of course, please avoid FOMO, because then these days, I mean, you see so many things which are changing rapidly, isn't it? So I'll say don't stress much, because then things are changing rapidly, but you need to decide what is right for you and what is not right. So I'll say don't fall in the FOMO trap. So I think these are a few words which I have for the younger generation.
Thank you, Ameya. That was quite insightful. So beyond automation, looking ahead, the most important developments are often the ones we aren't paying enough attention today. What do you think businesses and markets are currently overestimating when coming to AI?
So I think one thing which I see, because then, as I mentioned, since most companies are currently in the early stages of AI adoption, I think the idea that it's like a plug and play tool, I think that is something which is getting overestimated, because I think we might be using a certain tool in the current existing infrastructure, but it's more of an ad hoc fit, if you see. So it's not very integrated. So I think the kind of benefit which you'll get, the marginal benefit, because we are adopting that kind of approach, is a bit questionable. So I think when it becomes much more integrated, I think that is something whereby firms will start seeing more and more benefit. So I think this is one shortcoming which I can currently see. And also, there is an idea that maybe AI can handle any kind of challenging problems, any kind of challenging questions. But then there might be a thought that, okay, I mean, we don't need the human expertise. We just have the machine which will do everything. But then I would say that is not true, because then even if you have the most sophisticated model out there, finally understanding the model output and whether to accept it or maybe then give it to the model to then rejig that a bit, I think that is something which we should always consider. So because then human capital can be expensive. So then firms might be of the view that, okay, I mean, we can just spend on technology and maybe not have the human capital. But I think they are overestimating the technology bit and maybe not paying much attention to the human capital, which is very, very important.
Just to build on to that question, on the other hand, what do you think, what are they underestimating?
So I think one point which comes to my mind from the underestimation point of view is the extreme demand for energy, because then we have all of these data centers and cloud platforms which are out there, isn't it, which are going to be consuming a lot of electricity. So I think from an energy consumption point of view, there can be energy bottlenecks which can come in. I think also one more thing could be capex, because then the amount of scale which you require for AI is immense. And when there is so much competition amongst companies, and getting the required amount of capital allocation for a certain firm may not be very easy. So we might have an idea, okay, we have this wonderful looking tool, we'll easily get financing. So that might be a little difficult. So I think that is something which one needs to keep in mind.
Thank you. So with this, we come to the last question of our episode, Ameya. So if you had to identify one trend that could define the next decade of AI and analytics, what could that be?
I think consumption of agentic AI and agentic tools, I think that is the next best thing. Because then if you see, we surely have these prompts which we put in, whereby we put in a question and the AI tool will give us an answer. But then we have these newer age tools which are getting more and more sophisticated. So they are autonomous tools. So once we have the required amount of data which we are feeding to them, they have the potential to actually analyze the data, take an action, and also give us the result of their actions as well. So that kind of autonomy is something which is going to be a next big thing. And I think agentic AI tools are something which are going to be very exciting to see.
That was quite insightful, Ameya. Thank you so much for joining us and sharing your perspective on AI. So, the conversation around AI often focuses on technology. But as we have discussed today, the biggest story may be about decision making, adaptability, and human capabilities that remain critical in an increasingly intelligent world. Mr. Abhyankar, thank you so much for joining us and sharing your insights on this topic. And thank you so much, viewers, for tuning in, and we will see you in the next episode. Thank you.